Wow.
Hey everyone, sorry for the delay. We're trying once again to get Facebook to work. Facebook does not want to work. YouTube is up though. Hello, all those folks out on YouTube, not you on Facebook. We stan a streaming service that functions, which is not Zuckerberg's thing. But we're on YouTube and we're
Yeah.
excited to be here to talk birds and birding with y'all. Hi, I'm Nate Swick. That's Greg Neise. We're here with the American Birding Association.
Hi.
Greg, I'm still working on Facebook. I'm still holding that hope. Um,
Well, let
tell
me
them,
know.
tell the fine people out there what they're looking for,
I have
what they
tried
need
I
to
have
know.
tried 3 or 4, no, to make it now 6 or 8 times to post the link to YouTube in the discussion of the Facebook live feed, and Facebook will not allow a link
They
to
won't allow it.
YouTube.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Well,
there
if
it's
they don't want us to do that, perhaps they should come up with a live stream system that is
yeah.
functional more often than not, which is not the
Um
case.
well, anyway, it's
Anyway,
really good
anyway,
to see you and to see
welcome
everybody
back.
here. Um, so welcome to What's This Bird Live, and that's Nate Swick over there. I'm Greg Neise. What we do here is we pull pictures off of our What's This Bird group in Facebook, and things that I think are either relevant to the season or just interesting for one reason or another, and we look at them here and discuss and have some fun talking about bird ID. The other thing that we do is we talk to you. So if you guys in the comments on YouTube, and sorry Facebook, I think they're still trying to get Facebook going,
I'll
but it
be
doesn't look
trying. It's
it
going
doesn't look
through.
like
Like I
it's
see
doing
it.
it.
It just won't let me go live. Won't let me
Yeah.
go live.
Well, we we watch the comments, so if you've got something to say or a question, why we'll give you a shout out. We'll try to answer your questions. Want to say a quick hello to Jeff, Mike, Richard, William, Paul, Corey, Ellen, Eric, everybody on YouTube. So how do you do? And yeah, we're getting this thing started a little bit late.
Yeah, sorry about
But
that. Sorry,
yeah.
better late than never. Here on November 1st, it's November, Greg.
It is
We finally made it.
November. It's about time.
The
Boy.
best vagrant month of the year in the
This
ABA
seemed like
area.
this seemed like the summer that would never end.
Yeah, well, it was hot yesterday too around
I
here,
mean,
but it's cold
it was
today.
it was 80 degrees here a couple days ago. 82.
Yeah, we had a
But
warm Thanksgiving, or not a warm Thanksgiving.
yeah,
They may have had a warm Thanksgiving up in Canada because their
yeah, they
Thanksgiving is
might
in October. But we had a warm Halloween here, but it's the southeast, so we get those from time to time. But today was pretty chilly. We've got a little bit of rain. It's feeling much more fallish. The bird listserv is hopping with reports of white-throated sparrows and dark-eyed juncos and whatnot. So the winter birds are coming in to place, which is, I assume, what we're going to talk about a little bit here on today's
somewhat.
program.
The wonderful thing about November is that you never know what you're going to get. I mean, it's a real grab bag. You can get anything from Arctic species coming down to vagrant flycatchers to vagrant warblers if you're out
Fun
west
time of year.
to I mean, November is notoriously famous for southwest vagrants in the north and northeast. You know, you get things like vermilion flycatcher, and one November I had a groove-billed Ani in Chicago. So yeah, I mean, November's a real grab bag, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, you get the lingers, you get the new ones, you get the late birds. That's why we call it November. It's the number one rarity season for birds in the ABA area, particularly in the eastern two-thirds of the ABA area. Our friends out in California might say that September, early October might be better, and they have an argument to do that. But for the balance of the ABA area, November is the time to go out
It
looking
is.
for rare stuff.
I agree. And as we're 15 minutes behind the 8 ball here, how
Yeah,
about if
let's
we
go ahead and do it.
how about if we jump in and just start doing the thing? Oh, before we do though, Jeff on YouTube wants to know your Halloween nickname.
Oh, Swick or treat, Nate Swick or treat. But it's
Okay,
November now. That stuff is
I'm
past.
Does anyone out there want to take his place? And I'll just like get on. You get on Zoom, and
You know what? I just figured
you
out
keep
what happened. What the problem is.
puns.
I figured out what the problem is with Facebook.
What's that?
Facebook thinks that it's 1 hour earlier than it actually is. Daylight savings time came early to Facebook, apparently.
Oh, good gravy.
Yeah. So it won't go live at 1 because it thinks that 1 is 45 minutes from now.
Okay, can you
so
change the time?
I'm working on that.
All right, let me know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, there's Facebook and Zuckerberg's AI
that's
telling
glory.
everybody what time it is, and it actually anyway.
I thought that might be the case.
Right. Well, before we get into the birds, I want to let everybody know about our gift membership drive that's happening right now. Go to aba.org.
It's holiday gift giving season.
/gift-membership and give the gift of an ABA membership. We would love to have you and your family and friends join us. Yeah.
Just got loud all of a sudden. Yeah. There's no better way to help support the ABA by becoming a member. If you want to help us out even more, you can give the gift of ABA membership to any of your friends, family, fellow birders out there who want to help out. Maybe join the ABA and find out what's going on. You get access to a lot of great things like our magazines, our access to ABA community, access to the Rare Bird Vault, or not the Rare Bird Vault, but the
ID Vault,
North American Rare Bird Alert, all that fun stuff as part of ABA membership. Please consider joining and giving the gift of membership to your friends.
Yes, and you support programs like this and the ABA podcast and the Young Birder program and all the other great things that we do. So, by all means, join and give the gift to a birder you know. It looks ticks and chiggers. You go, guys.
Yeah. The secret is to tuck your pants into your socks because then the ticks will be too embarrassed to be seen with you. And
that does work, actually.
Every time.
All right, let's jump into some birds here. This one comes from Halmoon, New York. I don't know. They pronounce that Halmoon or Halmoon. I don't know. Whatever. Halman,
New York.
Actually, you're right.
It's Half Moon.
No, I mean, it's in the Northeast. It'd be Holman.
Yeah.
Holman.
Anyway,
it's probably
pronunciation of various New York sites aside.
Huhmun. Hummin.
What we've got here, Greg, is
I'm not going to let that go this easily.
Thick, triangular bill here.
The wonderful writer William Least Heat Moon once said that if Niagara Falls was 300 miles east, it would be pronounced Niffles. All right, what do we got?
We got a conical seed-eating bill here, but one of the interesting things about this bird is that the shape, I mean, superficially, it gives us a very sparrowy vibe here, but there's a lot of things that don't really work for any of our sparrows. It's really got a pretty interesting pattern going on, both on the head, also on the wing. The wings look super long too.
They
I don't know
do.
if there are any sparrows that have that have wings that are quite that long. You can see every single one of those primaries. That is a long-winged bird. A lot of color on the wing too.
Look at that big
brown,
rich
reddish brown. Yeah. It's very rich, relatively short tail too, long body. This is a bird that looks to me like it flies a lot. Whether or not it's a migratory bird or not, I'm not sure, but it's definitely a bird that uses flight to get around more than sparrows, which tend to be kind of short, rounded winged birds with longer tails that like to hide in dense vegetation. This is not that kind of bird, but that color, fascinating things. It looks very sparrowy, but it's in a group of birds that are no longer considered to be closely related to the sparrows.
Yeah. Well, and it's also got a really interesting face pattern with the ear patch or auricular framed in black. Mm-hmm. It's got a somewhat noticeable eyebrow, supercilium. It's got a little white coming up the collar there, little black smudging. Arnav on YouTube suggests house sparrow. Boy, there's a lot of things that don't work for house sparrow. One is the big,
I mean, it does have the
rich.
pattern. The big pattern on the face is a house sparrow thing too. But the you're right. The colors on the shoulder,
Well,
on the
on
wing
a
panel.
house, on a female or young house sparrow, the most noticeable thing on the face is the supercilium, and
Mm-hmm.
everything else just kind of falls away. And really, the most noticeable thing here is the frame on the auricular. Um, Also, that big rufous patch on the wing panel, and the long wings all kind of point away from house sparrow. Also, look at how kind of tubular this bird is. It's kind
Mm-hmm.
of long, and so
Streamlined.
let's look at the comp here. And so I put together the things that it would most likely be confused with in New York. There's our bird on the top left, and we've got a Vesper sparrow, a Savannah sparrow, a Lapland longspur, and a snow bunting. Um, I think if you take just a second looking at these four,
That we typically associate with that sort of habitat that we might be seeing here. Um, Lot not quite working for them, namely that the streaks are much more uniform on both Vesper and Savannah than the bird that we're seeing here, and the body is shorter, kind of rounder, more pot bellied, which is a very sparrow
yeah,
appearance, and the tail is longer than this bird. So this our mystery bird has a very long body and a short tail, which is not a sparrow shape and not a sparrow. Snowbunting and Lapland longspur, both good shouts. Those are both relatively closely related birds, interestingly enough,
yeah.
if I recall correctly. Um, yeah, you can see
Well,
that the
Nate,
shape is right for both of these birds. Long body, short tail, long wings, pale colored bill. But snowbunting doesn't have that kind of nice pattern on the back, on the wing, on the face that our Lapland longspur has here, and that's our bird here, Lappy longspur. It
yeah, and,
is
and Nate, as you pointed
great winter
out,
bird.
look at the wing length and how long the primaries are, and
Hmm.
that really rules out almost all of this, pretty much all of the sparrows that you might confuse a longspur with. Now, when you see these birds in real life, longspurs and snowbuntings creep on the ground. They do this
Hmm.
little kind of running creep, and they kind of crouch low. Um, and it's interesting, if most of your birding experience is in the lower 48 or most of settled Canada, um, you'll see these birds in the winter where they look like this, and you see them on the ground, you see them on beaches, you see them at landfills and open fields and things, and they're ag fields, and they're creeping around on the ground picking up seeds and things. It was wild when I was on St. Paul Island in Alaska in the Bering Sea to see the longspurs, the Lapland longspurs, perched up on top of the forbs, on top of the puchki
Hmm.
plants,
Yeah, you don't usually
look
see them up that
not
high.
looking at all like longspurs. I mean, they obviously look just like longspurs, but the way they behaved was so different. It's like you never saw them running around on the ground, which the pipits all did, but the longspurs were all perched up on top of the forbs, which was really kind of weird. Um,
Yeah, that's pretty
but
interesting.
yes, and
Where I always see longspurs is in those kind of big open fallow fields, both where I grew up in Missouri, where you get a ton of that stuff, and actually some sizable flocks of Lapland longspurs, especially in the winter, and here in the east, in North Carolina, Lapland longspurs in the eastern third of the state, in those fallow cotton fields, fallow tobacco fields. They like to be in the divots, kind of in the troughs of the fields, and
yeah,
you see them kind of pick up, and they're in these kind of tight flocks. You never see just one, almost never see just one Lapland longspur. You typically see dozens of them, and perhaps even hundreds of them if you're really
yeah,
lucky. And they kind of roll over on top of each other, and they're a lot of times very distant. They're in very big, tight flocks. A lot of times with snow buntings mixed in with them for sometimes, but that's not the sort of thing that you see these Savannah sparrows or Vesper sparrows, and they tend to be a
yeah.
lot more solitary. Longspurs and buntings, very, very, big flocking species.
Lori Conrad commented, I thought it was a Harris sparrow at first. And you know what? That's a
Yeah.
really good call. because
Yeah.
of all the sparrows, a immature fall duration to a Lapland longspur, and
Hmm.
yeah, I didn't put that one in the mix mostly because I didn't think of it. Um, Secondly, because Harris sparrow would be an exceptionally good bird in New
In New
York.
York, yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
In the Southern Great Plains, where you get both Harris sparrows and Lapland longspurs in some numbers. But they act so differently. Harris sparrow is a zonotrichia sparrow, one of those classic big bellied sparrows that likes wooded, rushy edge areas next to fields. They're typically not in the fields themselves,
yeah,
like a Lapland longspur is.
yeah. I see Facebook is still dead. Oh well.
I'm
Um,
trying. I'm
that's
still
all
trying. But
right.
if I seem distracted, that's the reason why. It's not
Okay.
working that well. I've tried two
Let's
different
move on to our
browsers.
next bird here. This one is
Yeah.
also from out in the Northeast, Sandy Hook, New Jersey. And who was it? I think it was Rosemary Moscow who said, "It is now the time of weird ducks," or "It's
Weird duck season.
weird
Yeah.
duck season." And yeah, so here we go with a weird duck.
Yeah, it looks like it's out there on a pretty big body of water. I see some waves and some
Yep.
troughs, like some cresting waves out there. Sandy Hook, New Jersey. This is a bird that's going to be in the nearshore waters almost certainly. So that will narrow things down a bit. A big dark duck with a little bit of white on the face. That says one thing to me, and that is scoter. This is a good time of
Yeah.
year for finding migrating scoters. I mean, there are a couple other ones, but when I see a big black
Two
duck with
big
white
white
spots on the face,
two big white
yeah,
blotches on the face. That does.
yeah,
But there is a third. There is a third species that
there
in
is
Sandy
another.
Hook. It could be. So let's take a look at those three.
Yeah, Harley. Yeah,
And when I first saw this bird, I will say that my brain sort of immediately jumped to Harley because of how short the bill looked. But that
mm-hmm.
is that is foreshortening. So the bird
Yeah,
is turned to us, and it's making the bill look shorter than it is. If that were a harlequin duck, the bill would look absolutely teeny tiny stubby at
yeah.
this angle.
Yeah,
So
they look like almost like a Barrow's goldeneye or a bufflehead
exactly.
or something like that, with kind of a high forehead and a little tiny bill. A lot of times Harlequin duck also, and we don't have the kind of wider view of where this bird is. I always see Harlequin duck hanging out in places with like hard surfaces,
Yeah.
rocky groins, piers, wharfs, that sort of stuff. They like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas a surf scoter will be more inclined to be sort of out on the water itself, a bit farther away from the shore. And we certainly can't see that in this bird.
No.
Maybe there's a pier that's right next to it. But that's just a kind of a little bit of a rule of thumb when we're thinking about these
Yeah.
ducks. And as you said, Greg, Harlequin duck, very very tiny little thing.
Yeah, it's harlequin. You
bufflehead
really
size.
can't tell the size of this bird. It's by itself in the
Yeah.
water. But harlequin duck shows usually three spots on the face. So it's got the spot below and in front of the eye. It's got the spot behind the eye, but then it usually has another spot up in front of the eye in the lores and scoters. And it looks like YouTube is stalling a little bit. So maybe we'll just there it goes. YouTube is back.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yep, I was just so if I see it
Streams
spinning,
are
guys,
crap today.
if well, yeah, there's something going on in the internet because our stream is usually not lagging like this. But if I see it spinning, I'll just talk about nonsense until I see it pick back up again, so that nothing gets lost. So now let's look at the two scoters, and really, they're very, very similar. Now, white-winged scoter. Yeah, and it's there we go. Most of the time, 50% of the time, white-winged scoter, you can see the white wing patch,
Yeah.
at least a little bit. But
And
sometimes
ducks when they're out on the water, sometimes they'll pick up on the back and exercise their wings a little bit, stretch their wings, and when you see that, it's dead to rights white winged scooter a lot of times.
yeah, and but sometimes, like in this comp, you can't see it at all. So then you have to rely on other things, and then it gets difficult. But there is a slam dustion. And yeah, YouTube is spinning again. There we go. YouTube is back. Um, Look at how the white spot in front of the eye just ends at the base of the bill, hard and fast. And compare that to the surf scoter on the left and the white wing scoter. I'm sorry, the surf scoter on the right and
We're
the
up
white
on
wing
Facebook
scoter on
now.
the left. You are?
I fixed it.
Let's see
Maybe.
here.
It's not on the. I had to completely batch it and reset.
Here
it
we go.
from scratch.
And let's see if
we'll
we
work
can.
on some more later.
All right, I'll keep an eye on both here. So hey, all you guys on Facebook that are just joining us, sorry about that. Facebook thought it was 2:00 or what? Didn't know what time it was, and wouldn't let us start the stream on time because the time was messed up. Apparently, it set its clock ahead in somewhere in Europe or something. Who knows what's going on?
Yeah, that might have been it.
So if we look at the two scoters, look at how the white wing scoter, the white mark in front of the eye goes into the bill and comes really close to the nostril. Whereas on surf scoter, that white mark, the bill comes all the way back, and the white mark is cut off. God, how am I trying to describe this? The feathering on white wing scoter goes into the bill almost to the nostril, and surf scoter does not. And in the male surf scoter, that square patch that's dark in the female is bright red.
Yes. Sorry, I wasn't listening to any of that. I was still trying to deal with Facebook. But I trust that Greg has a lot of great insight in identifying white wing scoter and surf scoter.
So the bird in question is a surf scoter.
Yeah.
And if you look at any good field guide like Sibley, they show that really well. And but that's the number one thing to look for. If you can't see the white wing patch and you've got either a white winged or a surf scoter, look at the feathering at the base of the bill. And white wing scoter, the feathering goes way into the bill, almost to the nostril. Surf scoter, it's way back. You can almost like put two fingers in between the nostril and the bill.
Mm-hmm. Shape of the head is also kind of an important thing too. Did you talk about that? Sorry, I wasn't even.
It is that the white wing scoter tends to have a more sloped head and a longer bill.
Yeah, kind of down. Whereas the surf is more like triangular, like an isosceles triangle stuck to the front of its head. White wing scoter has a bit more of a classic kind of duck bill, like you might see on a mallard or something like that. Whereas surf is just a big old clown face.
Yeah. But I mean, in the females, it can be in the females where they're dark bill, with dark bills and dark faces. It's hard to see exactly how, where the bill. I mean, even in these pictures, you can see it's hard to see exactly where the bill ends and the feathering starts. But you can still see the shape of that white wing or that white face patch, how it bleeds forward into the bill. And we've got some people on Facebook joining us. Good.
Hello.
Again, sorry about that, guys. Facebook was very messed up today. Let's go. Oh, man, we're staying in the Northeast. And I pick these things somewhat randomly. I try to jump around a bit to get all across the ABA area, but sometimes I just don't see that much out west or in the mountains. That's not something that we either have
elsewhere. This is a good one. This is a bird that's found across the continent, so there's
it is, but also right now in the Rocky Mountains and in the West, the birds that have been coming through have been birds that we've talked about in the last two episodes. Things like Nashville warbler or purple finch, house finch, things like that. So I'm trying to keep things mixed up here. So, looks kind of like a little long-billed chicken.
Yeah, for sure. The things that really stand out to me are the bird's massive bill, like kind of a long bicolored slightly
Yeah.
curved down bill, big old feet. Those feet are enormous for a
Big
bird
old
of
feet.
this size. It's hard to get a sense of size on this thing, but the body itself does not look huge.
I don't know. You
But
could.
the
I mean,
feet are
there's a
comparatively
cigarette
quite
butt
large.
behind it there,
Oh,
so you can
are we
kind
going to
of
do
tell how
the
big it is.
cigarette butt forensics like we did a few months ago?
Exactly.
This is a bird that people don't get to see all that often close up and well, so that's going to cause a few problems. But some
Yeah.
interesting things going on here. It's got a gray face. It's got a chestnut body. I'll cut to the chase. So this weird big-footed bird is one of our rails, secretive marsh birds that can be found in several species across the
Yep.
continent. But of our rails, we have a few of them that have kind of longer bills. That would be king clapper and Virginias. So those are the ones,
Virginia.
not Virginias,
But
Virginia's
now,
warbler, Virginia rail.
yes.
Um,
Now, here's the thing about rails is they are secretive marsh birds that are weak flyers and stay hidden in the reeds, and you hear them more than you see them. However, during migration,
oh, they
these
show up anywhere.
birds these birds get up in the air and show up anywhere.
They're
And
pretty incredible
if you look
dispersers.
around the world at all the most remote islands out in the middle of anywhere, all of them pretty much have their own endemic species of rail that
Yeah.
wound up landing there eons ago and evolved into its own species. And you can find rails almost anywhere during migration. And I got my lifer yellow rail, which is a very rare bird, well, almost anywhere, but especially in places like Chicago, inside the what are those doors called that turn?
I don't know, but I know what you're talking about. Like the
You know, the
department store doors, the circular
like a hotel
doors.
door. What are those
Yeah,
called? I'm having a
there's a
brain
term
fart.
for that. I'm not an architect.
Um,
Someone will know in the comments.
yeah, I'm just having a moment.
Rotating door? Is it a rotating
No,
door?
it's not rotating door. Revolving door.
Revolving?
Thank you, Jeff Blanchard. Revolving door. My lifer yellow
those
rail was
days.
inside a revolving door of a hotel in Chicago. So
There's that
they
famous
wind
photo
up.
of a yellow rail underneath the seats at Wrigley Field that turned up
Yeah.
a few years ago.
Yeah,
Revolving.
absolutely.
Everyone's got revolving. I don't know why. Now
Everyone's coming up with revolving. And yeah, I grew up in a
Revolving,
hotel. I know that.
revolving,
I just couldn't think of it at the moment. So, anyways, the three long-billed rails that we have, as Nate said, are King, Virginia, and Clapper. And really, if you see either of these three, you're going to know it's one or the other pretty quickly by size, because King and Clapper are big birds.
big.
They're
They're big
almost
birds.
they're almost the size of chickens, of
Yeah,
actual
they're getting there.
chickens. Whereas Virginia rail's a little guy. It's like the size of a robin, and but they look very similar. So on size alone, going by the cigarette butt forensics, I think we can call this safely a Virginia rail. But let's look at the
Yeah,
plumage.
and the big feet. I mean,
Well, they
certainly
all have
Kling
big
and
feet.
King and Clapper and Kling for that matter.
Kling.
Have big
Klingon
feet,
rail.
but Virginia looks like they're quite bigger. But the big thing is that deep russet color and the contrasting gray cheek.
Yeah.
We do have a fair bit of color on our King and Clapper. King especially can be quite brightly colored, even more so
Yep.
than the bird in this image. But generally, that kind of rufous, very dark rufous compared to the light colored cheek is a Virginia rail thing. So if you ever get a good look at one. Oh, so they forgot Ridgway's rail. See, we're leaving out
this
the
bird is in
western.
New York City. I don't
very
think
rare.
that a Ridgway's rail, despite how much rails do get around, if one did show up, in New York City, I don't think it would be identified as such.
No, they look very similar to
Yeah.
Clapper rail, and in fact, very similar to the Atlantic Coast Clapper rails that would be
Well,
common
and they were
in,
they were clapper rails until
relatively
fairly recently.
Yeah.
But also look at the bills. The king rail has a heavier bill. Clapper is sort of in between, but it still has a heavier, thicker bill than Virginia. But king rail's just got a big old bill. It's a big bird. And the clapper, as Nate was saying, it's washed out. It has a lot more gray in the face than king. But the whole bird just looks like you put it in Photoshop and desaturated it.
Yeah, king and clapper can actually be a very difficult ID in some parts of the eastern United States.
Yeah.
I know places where I live here in North Carolina where they kind of overlap a little bit, and the hard and fast rule that people will tell you that king's fresh water, clapper is salt water, kind of breaks down in a lot of places. And we also don't always think of clapper rail as being highly migratory, though I think perhaps we should, because there are a number of well inland records, especially in the
Yeah.
fall. But that said, King and Virginia are the more migratory of the rails and the more likely to kind of show up in weird places.
Yeah,
Though,
there was a
though
clapper,
clapper
I
will
think,
do
in
it.
Tennessee, or no, Kentucky.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think it was in Kentucky.
I believe that's correct. We get them inland North Carolina from time to time as well. More now that people are starting to look for them in the last few years.
Yeah, so our bird in question here is a Virginia rail.
Virginia rail. Virginia.
Yeah.
Who's afraid of Virginia rail?
Staying out east. Going to Cape May.
This is a really tough one, Greg. Definitely a small passer and bird. I get a very warbler vibe of this thing because it's got kind of a long, thin bill that does not have an apparent hook at the tip of it like you might see in a vireo. So this is definitely a warbler, but the warblers that are grayish green on the back and head and sort of brighter on the flight feathers are many. Hard to get a look at the
Now there's a few, yeah.
legs on this bird. Can't really tell, but the bill looks awfully large. Looks like it's going to have a little bit of an eye ring. Too.
Yeah, it's got a
Can't
little
really
bit of
tell much throat.
white around the eye. It's got a white throat.
Whitish, I'd say, but it's hard to tell.
Green
That might
on
be
the
kind of washed
tail.
out.
Short little wings. So really, Cape May in the fall. Well, you could find almost anything on Cape May in the fall.
True that.
But this bird, it looks like it's in the vines. It's in the tangles. I see some thorns there, so it looks like maybe there's roses and who knows what else it's clambering around in. And there's a few warblers that sort of fit this description. So let's take a look.
Yeah, some things also that sort of stand out to me on this bird are the relatively short wings. The primary projection is quite short on this bird, and you can see that
Yep.
Very well. And the tail looks awfully long and pretty substantial, even though it is foreshortened here.
Yep.
The tail feathers look like they've got some heft to it, which should narrow things down a little bit. But these are the four we're thinking about for sure: Morning,
Yeah.
Nashville, Connecticut, and common yellowthroat.
Yeah, and as Nate said, first thing he said was the short little wings, and really, once you see
Stubby
it,
things.
you can't unsee it.
Yeah.
And if you look at common yellowthroat there in the comp, common yellowthroat's not a long distance migrant. It doesn't really migrate all that far, and it kind of lingers around. It's often one of the latest warblers we find, in the northern climes. But also look at how well demarcated the throat is from the rest of the face. And Connecticut and Morning, we can just rule straight out because of that. Really, in no plumage do they ever show any kind of that sharp delineation between the throat and the rest of the face. Connecticut with that big white eye ring, same thing. It always shows that big white eye ring, so that's right out the door. Nashville also always, or almost always, very often, shows a white eye ring. It can be quite variable, but look at those long wings. This is a long distance migrant. It also doesn't have that sharp demarcation. However, in breeding plumage, it does. And that's, you never know what you're going to get in the fall. So that is a possibility. But the bill is also very small and very sharp. And it doesn't have that sort of curved upper ridge, the curved culmen that the common yellowthroat has. And so we're looking at a common yellowthroat here, which is
Indeed, and of the four species on here, that would be the most common by probably a wide margin, all across Cape May. Though Cape May does have a reputation for being a good place to find things like Connecticut warbler and mourning warbler, which are
on
late migrants, and it's
yeah.
worth keeping an eye out for them even into November in a lot of places.
On Facebook, our What's This Bird moderator Tim says common whitethroat, and that is something that, in at this time of year, I don't know what the percentage is, but it's measurable. Common yellowthroats have white throats. They're just
Some of them
they're just white like that.
common whitethroat is also a European
Yes.
European quote unquote warbler. That is not an impossible bird to show up in the ABA area. I want to say that there are a number of Iceland records and maybe even a Greenland record of
Yeah.
common whitethroat. Maybe it's lesser whitethroat, but one of them.
Lesser white. Well, I'm not
Might
sure.
be lesser.
I'd
I
have
think
to
it
look
might
it
be
up.
lesser, but I'm not sure.
But yeah, so our bird here in the upper left is a common yellowthroat.
Common
And
yellow throat, despite the lack of apparent yellow throat.
yes.
I still think that throat would be a little yellower if it weren't so. I think it's a little blown out there.
I mean, maybe, but I mean, I've seen quite a few with white throats. I mean,
No. I agree with you, and I have as well.
So yeah, we're gonna now get to a different bird that every once in a while we come across a bird that we don't really know what the heck it is or what to think about it, or Nate and I might disagree, and so
Yep,
yeah, let's dig into this thing.
Common white throat,
I
think. Yeah, this is a bizarre one because I'm not entirely sure where to start on this bird because it's hard to get a sense of size and shape because of how it is obscured. A lot of yellow underneath, a relatively dark head. Can't see the bill. Can't see the wings. Can't really get a ton on the tail.
One thing I need to point out here, though, that this bird was photographed in June in Ottawa.
Oh, well, that does change things.
Yes,
maybe a little. I still think a lot of the birds that we're thinking about would be present in June, in addition to November, October.
So, there's really very few passerines that have bright yellow undertail coverts. And this bird has, it kind of looks like it has pale irises, but does it really? No,
I can't tell.
You'll remember, I think it was last fall, we did a American redstart first fall female with the light hitting the eye just perfectly that made it look like it had pale irises, and really it threw the whole perception of the bird off, because you think of those warblers, especially redstart, as having beady little button eyes, but this one did not, and it looked really strange. And I think something like that may be going on with this bird. It's kind of backlit, and it looks like maybe the photographer tried to balance the image a little bit, which may be juicing up the yellows. But it's really hard to tell.
Can we identify this tree?
Now,
is that an elm? Is that an elm tree?
That's a
like
birch.
An elm tree to me.
That's a birch.
Okay.
Yeah. So, my first thought went to white-eyed vireo, but
doesn't work for white-eyed vireo.
Let's just get rid of any of the warblers.
Too lanky.
Well, I don't think so. But white-eyed vireo
has too lanky for white-eyed vireo to me is awfully compact. I wouldn't expect it to be kind of this long.
It can be, but white-eyed vireo is brightest yellow on the flanks and tends to have white undertail coverts. It doesn't have, this bird is brightest yellow on the undertail coverts.
Yep.
The tail and the undertail coverts are kind of beat up.
Well,
it's kind of ratty. And it definitely has a gray face like you might see on a white-eyed vireo. like I said, the iris certainly looks kind of pale. It's got kind of a whitish throat.
Does it? I am really not seeing a pale iris on this
Oh,
bird.
I
I'm
definitely
seeing
do.
like an orbital ring, perhaps,
No,
but I'm
I
not
don't.
seeing that. I'm
I
not seeing the
see.
iris. I don't see it.
I don't see an orbital ring at all. I see a pale iris, but I think that the iris, at least what I'm seeing, I think is lighting, and I don't think that it is.
All right, fair enough.
But the point is that you're correct. I don't think we can use that in trying to identify this bird.
No, it's not reliable.
What we can see here is that it has a plain tail. It has bright yellow under tail coverts. It gets less yellow as it goes forward, and it has gray on the face.
Yeah, gray or brown.
So let's just take a look. I had to include white-eyed vireo, and great-crested flycatcher is really the only thing.
I have another one that I'd like to throw out there that you didn't put in this. Scarlet tanager.
Yeah, I mean, that could be. The tail looks too long for scarlet tanager,
It
but
looks
maybe
long.
not.
I agree.
I think that we can rule out white-eyed vireo based on the yellow and the
Yes.
undertail coverts being the brightest.
I agree with you on that one.
I also,
the face doesn't
I
look
included
right either.
great-crested flycatcher because it's the bird we think of that has, the yellow underneath.
I could buy great crested flycatcher, though the tail does not look quite long enough.
That it doesn't show any rufous at all. And I think that if we can see
you're
yellow, and especially in June, if we can see yellow, we'll be able to see rufous, and it doesn't have that. And I went back and back and back, and Daphne and Rose points out that scarlet tanager has a notched tail. That can be.
I mean, that can be misleading with this
kinda-
bird. That tail looks awfully ratty. It's hard to get a.
It does, and it doesn't really. It just I see what you're saying. It just doesn't really feel like a tanager to me.
No, I agree. It doesn't. I'm just trying to, fit a square peg into a round hole.
No, we both are.
With this
We both are.
bird.
I've gone around and around and around, and I believe this bird is a female mourning warbler, but I say that with less than 50% confidence.
Yeah, I'll be honest. The size of the leaves doesn't say warbler to me, and like the just general shape of the bird doesn't say warbler to me. Like I get more of a kind of a lanky, longer tanager slash great crested flycatcher sort of feel from this one. But this is the sort of thing, like if you showed me another photo in this sequence and it turned out that it was clearly a mourning warbler, I'd be like, yeah, sure, that sounds fine to me too. Because I don't feel super strongly about any of these ideas that we're throwing out. Yeah.
And
get
Tim,
more photos,
Tim said,
folks.
Tim said juvenile. And Tim points out a couple of things, saying the undertail coverts look really short for mourning warbler. And scarlet tanager juvenile is where he went first. Now this is in Canada the first week of June, so
it's early. That would be early.
A
female scarlet tanager.
A scarlet tanager with plumage that ratty. Yeah,
I mean, it could be sitting on eggs, and it's got its tail stuck up in a, rubbing against a.
Yeah, but I wouldn't expect the scarlet tanager to have a gray face like that and be brightest on the undertail coverts. We can't really see the bird's wings at all. I mean, this is a tough one. This is one of those birds that we can talk about it for hours and never really come to
get more photos. Take more photos. Put your camera and burst that bird, and get us a sequence.
Yeah, John Lowry is saying he's not sold on.
Very difficult.
John Lowry is saying he's not sold on color reliability, but feels like white-eyed vireo is the best fit, and that it's stretching to reach something. And the thing that bothers me about white-eyed vireo is that we can see that flank on the outside of the bird, so the lower side to us, and it has no yellow on it. And in a white-eyed vireo, that would be the brightest part. That flank feather hanging down would be the brightest yellow, and it fades to white everywhere else. but yeah, and Tim says, I am confident that I don't know what it is. And I think that Nate and I,
That's all of us.
we all
That's
agree
all of
that
us
we are
right now.
confident that we don't know what it is. And yeah, I think we're probably going to just have to leave it at that. I mean, if I had to throw $10 down in a bet, I think I'd go with Morning Warbler, but
I'd go with Scarlet Tanager.
and yeah,
But
and if
again,
and if
not-
if
not
if
confident
another
in
picture
any way.
proved it to be a Scarlet Tanager, I would happily pay that $10.
Yeah, it's one of those birds.
Yeah.
Yep. John Lowry says that's the issue with What's This Bird, John, that you could nail this idea in the field in 3 seconds. Absolutely. No
Yeah.
question whatsoever.
Well,
But this is all we have.
and that's what makes this, I approach this kind of like a game every couple of weeks, it's like,
Yeah.
let's see what we can figure out. It's like, Tim says, is it possible that it's a yellow leaf out of, no, I don't think so. There's nothing,
Sure, why not?
there's nothing that's, no. I mean, I think there's some reflection happening here because the bird is backlit.
Oh, you mean the brightness of the undertail? No, I think that's about as legit as it can be.
Yeah, I think there's some reflection
that feels
happening, but
relatively true to me. Birch is a pretty light green colored leaf, especially on the under part.
yeah. Well, that
Tree bird.
is all of our birds for today, you guys. And if there's anything, we've got a couple minutes here. If there's anything that you guys want to talk about and give a shout out, why we're here for that. John says, you guys are the best at photo IDs. Well, thank you for the compliment, man.
We put up a good show, I guess.
We try.
Yeah, if you want to continue to help us out here at the American Birding Association, please consider joining the ABA or checking out our gift memberships. I'm going to make a shout for that too. You guys get a lot of great benefits by including discounts to partners. Boy, I'm just throwing a lot of words together. And discounts to partners like OM System, Hunt's Photo and Video, Zeiss, Cornell Lab of Ornithology, Beautyo Books. There's a ton of them. We have a pretty robust partnership
Offering. We have a robust offering.
That's what stuff. Yeah. Please check them out. You can learn more about that at aba.org/join. Enjoy November, everybody. It's a great time of year to look for some weirdos out where you are, and good luck to you in doing so. We will be back in a couple weeks to talk more about birds.
Really good to see you guys, and sorry for the glitch there on Facebook, folks. I don't know if any of you who came in late heard, but essentially Facebook got the time shift wrong that happens today and thought that we were going live an hour from when we actually were and wouldn't let us start the stream.
It wouldn't let us start the stream.
That is just par.
Now. It's starting now because it thinks
it's starting now. That is just par for the course.
Time.
That is par for the course with Facebook. These days it seems. So yeah.
Evening Gross speaking Ontario. Yeah. There's a few options. We'll go through them all. Yeah, thanks folks. We'll be back in a couple weeks. Keep a lookout. Sign up for the ABA's newsletter flight calls if you want a heads up on those things. Go to aba.org/join. Join us up. And we will see you then, everyone.
Yep.
See you on What's This Bird.
All right.
Adios.
Bye, guys.